Cole, thank you for joining me for our Thought Leader Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Matt Camp, head of partnerships for DealMachine. On these, we really shine a spotlight on industry experts like yourself to hear your inspiring stories and to really educate our audience on the lessons that you've learned and how you see the world evolving. So today, really excited to welcome on Cole Hatter. You're a real estate investor with deep experience flipping hundreds of houses, wholesaling, buy and hold, syndication, lending, all kinds of different strategies. You're a global speaker with over 3,000 hours on stage and taught over 200,000 people. And I know you shared that stage with some of the biggest names out there. You've been featured all over the place. You're the conference founder of the Thrive events, and then also the Wealth Factory Mastermind. You've teamed up with Cody Sperber to create that. It's clear that your life passion is for giving back to entrepreneurs as well. So welcome on, Cole. We're really excited to have you.
Thanks, Matt, bro. Appreciate it. And it's 6,000 hours on stage, just so you know.
Got to update that on your website.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even know there was a website that said that.
All good. Well, hey, to begin with, to start off, I would love to go deeper than that bio. I know, Cole, you've talked about, your life journey, and it's just something I think our audience would really, really be inspired by. So maybe could you start a little bit there about, how you've gotten to where you are today, and maybe your background with real estate investing and how you got into it?
Yeah, sure. Well, it all started 37 years ago on a rainy Wednesday. No, just kidding. So the Cliff Note version of my story is like most, probably more like junior high, picked a career. I said, when I grow up someday, I'm going to be a firefighter, pursued that, did that while I was in high school. I did high school during the week, and at nighttime and on the weekends did college, so that when I graduated high school, I'd already completed all of my prerequisites to get in my fire academy. Did that, and at 19 years old, landed my dream job. I was firefighter, had it all figured out, obviously, right? I'm going to work my 35 years, retire, get my pension, the whole deal. Unfortunately, that was cut short. 2 years into that career, at 21 years old, I got in a really bad car accident where I actually got ejected out of the car. And I was so hurt that they had to close the freeway down on both directions, land a helicopter, and airlift me to the hospital. I had a traumatic brain injury. I had obviously lost a lot of skin getting ejected out of a car on the freeway. We were going like 80 miles an hour. Broken bones, the whole deal, but didn't think I would survive because of my brain injury that first night, because my brain was swelling. Obviously I did. And since had a full recovery, thank God. But that year following the accident, a lot changed. I had to move back into my parents' house because right after the car accident, I couldn't even walk. Like, I could not care for myself at all. I had to be carried to the toilet. And so living back home with mom and dad, had a quick 2 years, in my dream job, living my dream, pursuing that career. And it was all done in a second. And without immediately following the accident, we didn't know what my recovery would be. Would I be fully physically healed? Would I have a limp? Whatever. And obviously being a firefighter is a very physical job. So I had to come to the reality of, I need to figure something else out. I can't just sit around and see how well I heal. I need to be able to make an income for myself. And, a lot of friends, parents at the time, and even distant relatives are like, oh, you're only 21, go back to college, get a degree, go get a job. But, sitting at a desk and doing the whole corporate America thing wasn't exciting to me. So I just started surveying people around me with my limited network, really just being my neighbors and my parents' friends, of the wealthiest of them, asking what they did. And I learned pretty quickly that real estate was the common denominator. They either made a career in real estate, or even some of them that were like doctors and surgeons and stuff, they would make their money in medicine, but then they would go and buy real estate. So the only common denominator I could find amongst the most successful people I had access to at the time was the only thing they all did was real estate. So I said, screw it. If rich people do real estate, that's what I'm going to do. That was literally all the thought that went into it. First thing I did was went and got my real estate license. And then as I learned that career and was picking which broker to hang my license with, I went to a 2-day training. It was a real estate investor workshop. I didn't know there was a difference at the time between a realtor and an investor. So here I am thinking I'm going to learn how to be a great realtor. And it was actually a 2-day training on rehabbing, fixing, and flipping houses. And the gentleman that was teaching the class asked the room, how many of you in here are real estate agents? And I raised my hand all high, like the highest hand in there, like, yeah, that's right. Youngest guy here. I'm going to beat everybody. And as my hand was up, half the room's hand was up. He said, all of you who are raising your hands, just realize that you have signed up for a 3 or 6% commission for the rest of your career, while someone else in that deal is making all the profits. My hand's up, and I like slowly start bringing it down. Like, wait, that doesn't sound cool. Long story short, I learned in that moment that there's a big difference between commissions and profits. So before I'd even hung my license at a brokerage, before I'd even listed a single home, I said, screw it, not going to be a realtor. I'm going to be an investor. Problem was I had no idea what I was doing. So it was 2005. And Matt, I don't know if you were following real estate that long ago, but it was booming. Stated income, stated asset loans. If you had a beating heart and a pulse in your neck, the banks would give you as much money as you wanted, 100+% financing. It was a wild, wild west. And so I just happened to be at the right place at the right time and made a stupid amount of money from like 2005 until 2008. I'm in my early 20s, crushing it. And I thought I was something special. I didn't realize that anybody could make money in real estate from 2005 to 2008. So 2008 came, it crushed me. I slowly lost everything from 2008 to 2010 because I actually didn't know how to invest in real estate. Any person on the planet could buy a house in that market, wait a minute and sell it for more money than they bought it for. Very similar to what we're seeing right now, again, as we're recording this podcast. It's just crazy. And so slowly lost everything. In 2010, I was down to, my last few bucks. And my girlfriend at the time and I broke up. So I'm single. My business is collapsing. And I said, screw it. If I can't make money and I have no reason to stay here because I don't have a girlfriend, I made the next logical choice that anybody would do. And I became a missionary and moved to Mexico, right? That's career number 3. I was a firefighter. Then I was an entrepreneur investing in real estate. That didn't work out. So let's just go be a missionary, tell everybody about Jesus, right? Moved down to Mexico. I started building houses for homeless families. And while I was down there, fell in love with what I was doing, with the philanthropy, and ended up starting an orphanage while I was down there. I still have to this day. We have 29 kids right now. And so as I'm down there, I'm living off my savings. I probably had maybe 20, 25 grand left to my name when I got down there, which depending on the listener, that might sound like a lot of money, but I had just come from making 100,000 a month every single month in my real estate business. So that was what I had left. But down in Mexico, it lasted a long time. About 7 months later, I was running out of cash. And at that point, I think I had about 11 kids I was taking care of at my orphanage. So I realized, holy crap, I need money now. It's not about me anymore. I've got these kids relying on me. First thought was go back to America, start a nonprofit. But something about asking people like you, Matt, who are doing well financially to just support me monetarily and send me money every month so that I could live in Mexico and take care of my kids. It just didn't feel right asking for money just for charity. And literally right at that time, about 2010, Tom's Shoes was taking off. And Blake Makowski, the founder of Tom's, created a business model for those of you that are unfamiliar, that for every pair of shoes he sold, he gave a pair away. And I said, that's it. I'm not going to go start a charity. I'm going to start a business that in the business model will take care of my kids. I'm not going to sell shoes and give a pair of shoes away, but I'll figure out something to do that takes care of this orphanage. And as I was trying to figure out the business model, I was telling myself, this isn't a for-profit in the traditional sense because we're going to be helping others, but it's not a nonprofit because I want to make a bunch of money. It's something in the middle. And so I coined the phrase for purpose. It's a for-purpose business. It makes money, but impact simultaneously. So that's what I did. I moved back to America from Mexico. So I lived in Mexico for those 7 months, moved back to America. I restarted my real estate investment business. I started a couple of other companies as well, all for purpose now. And fast forward, they've made tens of millions of dollars. We've been able to impact hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And as my businesses grew and therefore my impact was growing, it caught a lot of attention. And I started being asked on podcasts like yours to share my story. And what I found is that my social media was blowing up. People would hear these podcast interviews where I talk about my businesses helping people, and they were blowing me up like, dude, how did you do this? How did you think of this? How do I do this? So I looked at my wife and I was like, man, so many people ask for help. We should just do an event, a one-off conference, one time only, to just teach these people that are interested what we're doing with our businesses. And that was Thrive #1 in 2015. We had no idea what it would turn into, but we did it. And we got amazing speakers that come out. We had Gary Vaynerchuk at our very first Thrive. No brand, no credibility, but we still got Gary V to come out. We got Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank. A bunch of just incredible Lewis Howes, Adam Braun, a bunch of amazing humans came and spoke at that first one. We had about 450 attendees at our very first Thrive. And what was meant to be a one-off, here we are 6.5 years later, because my wife and I started looking at the impact we had made that Sunday of all of these entrepreneurs that were so fired up on building businesses that give back. And we ended up creating an entire movement. And so that is really about a 20-year life journey right there, from firefighter to missionary, firefighter to entrepreneur to missionary back to entrepreneur. So now I run a dozen different companies that I either own all of or a piece of. And all of them are for purpose. And I'm about becoming as wealthy, unapologetically wealthy as I can be, because I don't just make money, I make it matter. And that is our slogan at Thrive. Don't just make money and be a consumer buying yourself stuff. Make money matter by being generous and changing the world with it. And that's the mission I'm on, bro. So that's it in a nutshell.
Love it. Yeah. Fantastic. I mean, there's so many things along there I want to touch on, but to kind of begin with, I'd love to kind of speak on your real estate investment and your approach, especially the second time through getting into it. Like you said, you were, originally in a market where anyone could succeed. You were, buying low, selling higher, it was appreciating naturally. And then over time you figured out, those aren't sound fundamentals. So can you maybe tell us what you learned going into that second time, how you changed your approach, how you have been so successful the second time through?
Yep.
As compared to that first time?
Yeah, 100%. And you nailed it. The model the first time around was just buy a house, count to 10 and sell it. I'll never forget it. We closed on a property, and before doing anything, we didn't even rake the leaves off the grass. We were just waiting on our permits to start construction. And somebody offered us $80,000 more than we just bought it for, and we did nothing to it. And we were only predicting to make like $100,000 6 months down the road. So we sold it. So that was crazy. Back to your question though. Version 2.0, when I moved back from Mexico, first thing I did was I got a coach. I went to a friend of mine. So as quickly as possible, backstory, in 2007, a few years into my career, I convinced my buddy to quit his job as a timeshare salesman. He was making a great living, but he hated his life. He worked Wednesday through Monday. He only had Tuesdays off, and it was just a grind. He was making good money, but it sucked. I was like, dude, look, I'm making more money than you are, and I wear board shorts and flip-flops all day. I only put on a shirt if I have to. Like, you should do this. I convinced him to get in. And I was always bigger and making more money, bigger in the sense of deal flow and size of team than he was. Well, when I moved back from Mexico, I thought of him. I hadn't spoken to him in maybe 2 years. Nothing bad happened. We just, life gets busy. I reached out to him, and now he was freaking crushing it, doing more. He was doing like 30 flips simultaneously. Like, he had built a 15-person company that was murdering it. And I was like, what the heck? You were like my little mentee, and now you're crushing bigger numbers than I ever did. Like, what the heck happened? And he said that he invested in a coaching program, and all the systems and everything that came with it allowed him to scale. So I followed in his footsteps, invested in the same program, did what I was taught. Because any of you out there who invest in education, people say knowledge is power. I disagree. Applied knowledge is power. Knowledge in and of itself is just potential power. If just having knowledge made you money, then librarians would be the richest people on the planet. So it's the knowledge you have that you then use. And so I used it like my life depended on it, because quite frankly, it did. And I learned that there are systems and strategies within real estate, and that it literally doesn't matter what real estate's doing. It only matters what you do when real estate's doing what it's doing, which is a quote from one of my mentors. If real estate's going up, down, left, right, sideways, irrelevant. You just change your approach. There's always opportunities to be making money in real estate. And so I rebuilt my company by getting rid of bad habits that I shouldn't have done in my business, creating new ones, and having like laser focus. And then that was really it. I mean, we can expand on what those systems and things look like, but the difference between 2005 through 8 and then 2011 and beyond was, I guess I should say 2005 through 10, but those last 2 years weren't profitable. The difference was I actually was a real estate investor. I wasn't just buying an asset class that was booming and just riding the wave. I actually knew how to put deals together, how to structure the financing, how to negotiate properly, how to know what my exit was before I'd even purchased to begin with, how to actually rehab a house and manage my contractors and all of that. And that was the needle mover for me.
Yeah. And I think I love how you mentioned, hey, regardless of what real estate's doing, it's what you're doing and how you adapt to that. That's so important. Totally. You also kind of hinted that, that today's market parallels a lot of what you were talking about back then, where you could buy, wait a minute, and then sell it later. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you're doing right now to really act differently this time around and hedge against that and be able to use what you learned in the past and apply that to this market?
Yes. So what hurt me the most in the last season of real estate investing was when it all shut off, which was pretty quick. If you remember, we had like in the September or October of 2008, we had the credit freeze where You couldn't get a loan for a house, a car, like just banks just turned off. And so I was stuck holding 30 properties or 33 properties at the time. And when the cash flow turns off and the buyers are gone and you're stuck with 33 houses you're paying for, it gets ugly quick. Luckily, we didn't foreclose on any of them, but it was brutal. And so what I'm doing now is I know that what we are seeing, it should continue for the next few months. As of recording this, it's May of 2021. So going forward, I anticipate we're going to have a solid summer and even a solid fall. Beyond that, it's kind of a gamble. I feel optimistic for next year as well. We'll see. Depends on what inflation does and, kind of the disruption we have in supply chains and how expensive things get right now. But that being said, what I'm doing differently now, just more specifically to your question, is I'm doing way bigger deals and less volume. I was doing deals in 3 markets. Southern California would be like onesie twosies, but I was crushing it out in Phoenix, Arizona, and in Columbus, Ohio. And I was buying homes for like 80 grand, putting 20 to 30,000 into them, being in them for 100 to 120 grand, and then flipping them, depending on what I was into them for like 115 to 140,000. So I was making 30 to 40,000 to flip, and I was doing 20 or 30 at a time. I even at one point had my own radio show in 2009 and 10 to try to compensate for how bad we were doing financially, saying, hey, if we had a bigger microphone, literally, and had our own radio show, there'd be so many listeners, we'd make it. But it was a volume play. Now my strategy is I buy homes here. I live in Orange County, California. So before I throw these numbers at you, know that these are tract homes, but I'm buying houses for about $1 million. That's my sweet spot. I'm putting $100,000 to $300,000 into their renovations, which is substantial. I'm usually into them for 1.2 to 1.5. And then I relist them again, depending on what I'm into them for that 1.5 to $2.2 million range. And although that might sound like a ton of money, depending on where you are listening to this, again, in Orange County, California, these are 2,500 square foot tract homes that just happen to be a 5-minute drive from the beach. So they're exaggerated in their pricing. But what that allows me to do is make $150,000 to $300,000 per flip net after paying everybody. And so instead of having to do 50 of these smaller deals, I'm doing a dozen or so of these larger deals. And why that's helpful this second time around is I'm not carrying as many assets. I'm not, if things start to turn, I only have to sell 1 or 2 homes. I don't have to sell 35 homes. And so I'm not over leveraging myself is what I'm getting at. And I am aware each time I make an offer of where I predict the economy to be in 6 months, where I think interest rates will be in 6 months. Whereas before I had no forecasting because I didn't even know it was important. I just assumed this would never end. It would just go like this the rest of my life and I'd be richer than God. And now I actually am very considerate of where I'm investing, what the local economy looks like the jobs, et cetera. I know here in Southern California, for the first time in our recorded history, we have more people leaving our state than coming in. I'm very aware of that for the future of my business and flipping, that our days on market will inevitably go up. So I have to calculate that in my carrying costs. So it's really just tweaking the math, lowering the volume and increasing the profitability so that I'll make more money by flipping less houses. And I am always looking into the future of when this deal is ready to hit market, where do I think things will be? And those are all new things I'd never done before.
Smart. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love how you've kind of really carved out your niche like that and really put the thoughtful systems in place to really understand where you thrive and where you can do it over and over again. Mm-hmm. I know we definitely have a good number of newbies listening to this that are trying to find that niche in the market as well for their own local market and for their own approach. Do you have any advice for them on how to go through that process the first time and really discover that niche and settle on it?
Yeah. So this won't be universal, but the framework will. So for me personally, here in Southern California, the medium price point is 800 grand. That's the average piece of real estate. That includes your condos all the way up to your mansions in, Beverly Hills. The average property the medium price point of real estate here is 800,000. So I'm going to the 1.5 to $2 million mark, which is bigger than the median, almost double. Actually, it is double. However, in Southern California right now, there's about as many buyers in that pool as there is in the $800,000 pool. Yet there are way less investors and way less competition because newbie investors think I could never flip a $1.5 million house. I need to buy one for 500 grand, put 100 grand into it. So I'm into it for 600 grand and listed at 720 or whatever. And for me and my approach, I realized that while there's 1/3 as much competition in the price points that I am buying in, there's almost as many buyers. So why wouldn't I want to move into a product that there's less competition, but as many customers as there is in a product that has more competition? Like, let's remove houses as our industry. If you are a business owner selling any product or service, why wouldn't you go to the product or service that has less competition, but just as many customers? So for me here, that's the way the numbers work. For you guys in your own markets, you would want to do your own demographic studies and research, talk to some realtors and brokers of what your local demographic looks like. And then maybe there's an opportunity for you to do a similar play where you can price out your competition a little bit without pricing out your marketplace. And so that was really my strategy, and it's worked well for us. And while we're talking about choosing to do a more expensive flip, I want to remind people that when I talk to newbies, and I've done that a lot, the majority of my 6,000 hours on stage is teaching real estate education. And when I talk to newbies, they feel that when they're doing lower end homes or less expensive homes, it's safer. They don't want to buy $1 million home. They want to buy a $400,000 home. And I can understand that bigger numbers might be scarier. But let me ask you a question, Matt. If I am renovating a 2,500 square foot house in Orange County, California, that I'm going to sell for $1.5 million, or a 2,500 square foot house in Topeka, Kansas, that I'm going to sell for $120,000, they're both 2,500 square foot, 4-bedroom, 3.5 baths. Are they going to use the exact same amount of paint?
Yeah. There you go.
Are they going to use exactly as much drywall?
Yeah. Yeah.
Flooring, roofing, landscaping. Guys, it's identical. It's no more work, and it takes just as long, except by adding a 0 at the end of your cost, you add a 0 at the end of your profit too.
That exit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have all these people that think they're being safe by staying on the lower end of the market here in Southern California. People that live where I live, driving 2 hours into what's called the Inland Empire, where you're like 2 hours from the beach, and things go way down in price because they think they're being safe, and they do all of this work and it takes them 6 months and they're making 60 grand. I'm like, do you realize that if you had done all of that here, you would have made 240 grand, and it would have taken you just as long, and it would have been just as much material and just as much everything, except it would have cost more, but you would have made more. So I would encourage the newbies to not be afraid of the numbers in the sense of how expensive things are or aren't. Only be afraid of the numbers if the margins aren't there. But if the margins are there, go for the bigger deals, because it's not any harder to renovate a 2,500 square foot house compared to a 2,500 square foot house, even if their pricing is 5 times more for the more expensive home. It's just as much work. And so that would be the last little piece of advice I'd give on that strategy.
Yeah. I mean, you've spent so many hours coaching and speaking to and talking to newbies like that. Are there any other strategies like that, or common questions that you're hearing where it's disproportionately, hey, if you could change this mindset, or if you change this thing, or if you do this little tweak, you're going to get a 10x result like that? Like, are there common things that our audience should know?
Another common, I would say, concern that I hear at live events, like I'll speak in an event of 250 people, and I'll have a student come up to me on one of the breaks and say, Cole, I'm concerned all these other people in here are hearing this. Like, how am I going to succeed if there are 249 other people that are learning the same thing I'm learning in my own marketplace? And so what I want to remind you guys is that for the rest of human history, like from this day forward until forever, until it all ends, however you believe it's going to, whether it's God coming back, global warming blows us up, nuclear war, whatever you think is going to be the end, between now and then, human beings will always need food, water, and shelter. Always. So there will always be value in shelter. That being said, there will always be demand for shelter. And so I would tell these individuals, in any market I'm in, what's your local population? They'd be like, it's X amount hundreds of thousands, or X amount millions. I'd be like, cool. So we can both agree that there are literally hundreds of thousands of homes in your market. Yes? They'd say yes. And I'd say, awesome. What do you predict you're going to make on each flip? Yeah, 50,000, Cole. Okay, $50,000. Got it. How much are you making in your current job? 120,000. Okay, cool. So you would need to flip 3 houses to exceed your current income. You would only need to flip 3 houses at a $50,000 profit to make $150,000 to replace your current job where you're making 120. Let me ask you this. Despite competition in a marketplace of millions of human beings, or hundreds of thousands of human beings, where there are hundreds of thousands of homes, do you think you can find 3 in a 365-day time span to be able to replace your income? So I think another newbie mistake is people don't work backwards on the math, and they think that they need to be flipping 15 homes simultaneously to be able to make a living. And you don't. You need to be flipping 15 homes simultaneously if you want a Lamborghini and fly around in private jets. But to replace your income, become self-employed, and have lifestyle by design, most people need like 3 to 5 flips a year to replace whatever your job's paying you. So another newbie mistake is people are so concerned with competition because they think they need to flip their entire city to make a living. And you need to flip your entire city if you want a 400-foot yacht like Jeff Bezos just bought. You don't need to flip your entire city to replace your job and even increase the quality of your life. Literally like 6 to 10 homes. Almost every person I talk to, they're quadrupling their income by only flipping 6 to 10 homes. And it's not hard to find 6 to 10 deals in an entire year in any market across the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, do you think, so outside of the newbies, like the more advanced investors, I know, one thing that you had touched on in the past was like your experience with private lending and borrowing and kind of raising capital, all of that. Yeah. Is there anything for the more advanced investor that you can speak to there of lessons that you've learned when it comes to fundraising and using other people's money like that?
Yeah, I think the future being the next 18 months, seller participation is going to be one of the best strategies. And what I mean by that is all of us understand creative finance, or I should say all of us, again, in the more advanced category, understand traditional creative financing like hard money, private money, seconds, et cetera. But what I'm seeing more and more of in the marketplace are seller participation deals. And what that means is seller financing, seller financed seconds to cover that bridge gap money or whatever. And I think that for the more advanced or more seasoned investors on this call or listening to this episode, what you're going to see in the marketplace from raising capital is the subject to financing. I just bought a property with an AITD. It's called an all-inclusive trust deed, where I bought the property and basically a wraparound mortgage. I bought the existing mortgage in place, took over those payments. I now make those payments on behalf of the owner. I had to escrow 3 months because his concern was, well, Cole, if you're taking over my mortgage, if you don't pay it, my credit's screwed. And I said, that's correct. However, I will go ahead and escrow 3 months worth. So heaven forbid it gets to the 5th of the month and I haven't paid the mortgage. Well, in the escrow instructions say that you can withdraw that month's payment to go ahead and cover that. So I escrowed that money. I then personally brought the money to the table to do the renovations, but the purchase price I didn't have to worry about because we just left the financing in place. So what would have been raising like $1.4 million, I only had to raise like $350,000 for that deal. Mm-hmm. Now I'm in the position in my current business and my network that raising money is not hard because I have some very high net worth individuals that will fund up to $10 million of my deals each. But that lowered the interest that I'm paying. Again, I'm speaking to the more advanced people. If you're beginners, listen to this again. But if I'm paying interest on 1.4 million versus like 350,000, obviously my interest is going to be way bigger and therefore my profit's smaller by financing the entire deal. But by doing these seller participation deals, again, where whether they own the property free and clear, so I have them finance it to me, seller financed, or whether they have huge equity and I have them do a seller financed second, or whether they have no equity and I just leave their mortgage in place and take over payments, it's reducing the amount of capital I need to raise and therefore lowering my monthly interest payments to my lenders, which ultimately increases profitability on the back end. And so I am seeing more and more of those, I call them seller participation, but where the seller helps me with the financing more now than ever. And so beyond the traditional, have your hard money lenders, your private money lenders, et cetera, I would encourage everybody to ask. Gretzky and Jordan are both quoted saying you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Every single deal I do now, I ask them, are you willing to carry paper? Are you willing to let me take over your existing mortgage? I'm trying to get out of having to pay for the entirety of the property every single time I buy a house. And they might say, absolutely not. I want to be done with this and move on. Like, you bring the money to the table. Okay, cool. Well, then we're back to square one. I'll raise the capital with hard and private and do what I need to do. But probably like 25% of the time, like 1 out of 4, they're like, yeah, that's fine. I'll do that. And so I come in and I just take over their payments or whatever and do the deal. And then when I sell, obviously their existing mortgage is paid off in that closing.
Yeah, that's great, man. I mean, and I know you told me before as well, once you, everything that you're setting up right now, you're thinking through cash flow in a much smarter way than you used to, pre-crash originally.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're reinvesting that back into your other, 12 businesses, you said? Is that
Yeah,
how many?
well, a dozen. I mean, I would have to count,
Take.
but I own 100% that I run. And then
Okay.
like with Cody, I'm a partner in a bunch of others. I am a partner in Avengers. I'm a partner. So I have a bunch of partnerships where I own 10% or more of other companies as well.
Okay, cool. And I know one that you're really particularly passionate about is Thrive, which you got on your hat right there.
Yep.
Can you maybe tell our audience a little bit more about Thrive and why you created it? And I know you touched on it a little bit, to start, but and also who should get involved.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, back to the story, came back to America, had these for-purpose businesses, talked about it. The world was clearly thirsty for not just making money, but making it matter. I meet so many, speaking to your advanced listeners right now. So I meet so many people that are financially well off. They're crushing it, but they're miserable inside because just chasing the next zero isn't as fulfilling anymore. Being like, okay, I made $10 million this year, going to $14 million next year is awesome, but that doesn't like energize my soul anymore. There's got to be more to this. And so many of those people, as well as our brand new entrepreneurs that are just trying to make ends meet, want to do more than just make money their whole life, pay for stuff and die. And even if you're paying for good stuff, it's an honorable life to have lived in a safe place, put your kids through college, drive decent vehicles, take decent vacations, tithe at church, donate to charity when you can, and call that a life. There's nothing wrong with that. But for many of us, we feel that we're called for more than just earning money to just spend it to live our lives. We want to do things that are, significant and outlive us. Why are there streets named after Martin Luther King Jr. and high schools and elementary schools and parks and monuments? Like, how do you do things of significance that even after you're gone, people will talk about you in high school class and kids will be tested on what you did with your life, right? Like, how do you get into that category of human being? And ultimately, it's about impact. It's about significance. Nobody cares how much money you made. When Bill Gates goes or Jeff Bezos or any of these monsters, no one's going to say like, man, I can't believe how rich they were. They will just talk about the meaningful impact that those individuals made in their lives with the time and resources they had available to them. So that being said, there's this huge global audience of people who want to know how to make money and then ultimately how to make it matter. And I realized that accidentally through social media telling me. What's really cool about the world we live in now, Matt, is once upon a time, you and I would have to create a product. We would sell it to the world and hope that it worked. And whether people bought it or not would be our feedback on whether we had a good idea or not. Now we can literally ask the world, what do you guys want? And when they say, we want this and we'd be willing to pay for it, we just bring it to them, right? Like, it's reverse marketing. Hey, I have a company here. What would you buy from me? Well, Cole, if you created this experience, we would come and pay for it. Okay, that's happening in August. Tickets are now available. That's kind of what I did. I just said, what do you guys want? They told me, and I built a business around it. It's made millions of dollars. By the way, that has nothing to do with real estate, but for my entrepreneurs listening in, you should try that. Ask the world what they're willing to pay for. When they tell you what they would pay for it, then just make it and give it to them. You already have customers waiting to pay for it. That's what I did with Thrive.
That's how we're building DealMachine for sure. Is like we're very focused on customer feedback like that. So
totally so important to have open communication channels with your customers, whether that be email and newsletter replies, whether that be social media, private groups. It's free to start a group on LinkedIn. It's free to start a group on Facebook. I would encourage you to build groups around your core competencies. So for this audience, probably real estate. Build your own online RIA groups where you are the curator of that group and bring interesting conversations, articles, and even characters into that. Now you own that space. And then you can ask that audience that you build over time, what would you be willing to pay for? This is a free group. I've been bringing in guys like Matt to chit chat 15 minutes. Like, I've made this group valuable to you. What would you pay for? And listen to their responses and go make it and sell it to them. So you've never been able to do that before, at least, pre-social media, pre-internet, that's for sure. And so it's an exciting time. So back to your question, what is Thrive and why did I do it? People told me they wanted to run businesses that made millions of dollars and changed the world. I said, I got you. I'm going to create it. And we called it Thrive, Make Money Matter, because we want to teach people how to thrive in business and life to then make their money matter. Who should come is any business owner. If you're in real estate, you're my people. I got you. But we have chiropractors, e-com people. I mean, anybody who's self-employed comes to Thrive. And the speakers that we bring are the best in the world. I've already mentioned a few, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Robert Herjavec. We have Eric Thomas come and speak a bunch. He's the #1 motivational speaker on the planet. We've had Grant Cardone multiple years. Les Brown,
like Tony Robbins, and
all of those, just the badasses of the world. They all come. And the experience for you who are listening to this, who would ever want to participate, is for 3 days. It's a 3-day conference. It's in person again. It's going to be this November of 2021 because, with COVID and all that stuff, we had to take a pause on in-person experiences. Those are back, and we're doing ours in the fall. And so you would come to Las Vegas, Nevada. It's at the MGM Grand. So, this isn't some rinky-dinky event. We're on the Strip, huge ballroom, 2,000 plus attendees. And for 3 straight days, you have a lineup of 26 of the most powerful speakers on the planet teaching you how to make money. And then it's me and a few of the other speakers' jobs to then teach you the for-purpose business model and how to make your money matter, so that by Sunday, at the end of that 3-day experience, you've learned a ton from some of the most incredible, successful humans on the planet. And you also have a business model, should you choose to use it, that will not just make you money, but it will simultaneously make impact. And so it's not a pitch fest. I actually have every single one of my speakers signed a contract saying that they are not allowed to sell anything from my stages. I protect my audience because that's not the point. I give 100% of the money from Thrive to charity. So this is not some big pitch fest where I'm just trying to make a living off of my event. I make plenty of money from my other businesses. Whatever profits Thrive does make, again, we give to charity. We gave $250,000 last year to Dan Fleischman with Model Citizen Fund. Before that, we've raised over $1 million for Claire's Place Foundation, which is a charity for children born with cystic fibrosis. So each year we pick a different cause. We give money to charity. And so again, for any of you who are interested in that stuff, that's what Thrive is. It's awesome. It's a safe place. And it's incredible people. When you tell people the conversation we're going to be having is about how to change the world with your business, douchebags don't want to come. They think it's stupid. I get a ton of hate in my ads of people like, let me get this straight. You want me to come to your event to learn how to give money away? You idiot, blah, blah, blah. Those people don't come. Who shows up are human beings of quality character, of substance, who know that making money is important because you can't make money matter if you're not making money, but ultimately don't just want to die rich with a bunch of stuff. They want to die filled with humans that are fighting over their microphone at their funeral to share about the impact they made in their lives. And if that sounds like you, then you're a part of our tribe. That's what it is, bro.
Yeah. And you're so genuine around like being able to share that message and how it clearly drives you and how you operate all of your businesses. So I really appreciate you coming on, sharing that. I know you mentioned we're gonna be able to hook people up with a discount code, you said, or
yeah, I'll have my team build it. So it doesn't exist yet. However,
yeah.
Let's assume by the time you hear this, it does. We'll make it has to be at least 3 letters. Do you want to make your promo code right now?
Yeah, I just do. You just do DealMachine.
Okay, one word. Okay.
Yeah.
So then one word. Go to.
Hold you to it right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll just send an email as soon as we're done. So by the time this is edited and live, it'll be built, everybody. So yeah, the website's attendthrive.com. We're still updating it. So we only have, I think, 3 or 4 speakers announced as of yet. But use DealMachine in the checkout, and we will give you a discount on those tickets.
Yeah. This was awesome today, Cole. I really, really appreciate your time, man. I don't want to run too far over on you, but I know in general, is there any other way for people to connect with you or to follow what you're working on? Or obviously Thrive's a great place to start. But
yeah, Thrive is attendthrive.com. That's simple. Just give us a look. And if you come out, awesome. Let me know that you heard about it on this podcast. Give me a chest bump, a hug, or a distant high five, depending on how you feel about social distancing. And then me personally, I'm just at Cole Hatter on every social media platform out there. Just one word, no dots, no letters, no numbers, just at Cole Hatter or not colehatter.com, excuse me, at Cole Hatter on Insta, Twitter, Facebook. You get it.
Yeah. Well, Cole, again, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time today. And, I really, really enjoyed the conversation. So
likewise, Matt, bro, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. And to everyone watching, happy deal finding. And this is Matt Camp with DealMachine. Till the next one.